Hey, welcome into the Something Like Therapy podcast. We're back. Yes, we apologize for our extended absence. We were kind of getting back into the groove of things, rejuvenating, repowering up, I guess you can say. But we're back, and we are so happy to be back and be with you guys. Jess and I are going to kick things off with an episode on codependency. Yeah, such a fun topic as the first one back. But it's something that we've been kind of kicking around for the last few weeks, and we just want to get it out there and get it to you guys and get some feedback on it. So stick around. Hopefully you learn something, as I hope you do with all of our episodes. And again, happy to be back with you guys. So let's get the show going.
Welcome back, guys. Oh my gosh. What has it been, like a year, 2?
17 years? Pretty sure, yeah.
I don't know what happened.
We had to go cocoon,
Yeah.
and then, regenerate and come back stronger, I think.
Yeah,
That's what happened.
It's been a few months now, but we kind of went through some stuff and had to kind of collect ourselves. I think if we would have kept doing it, our content probably would have been a little messy and maybe a little, I don't know, not so friendly.
Right. You can kind of feel sometimes when things just don't feel like 100% or that they're just not at the potential you want them.
Yeah.
And it's kind of good because I'm glad that we maybe, even if we didn't say it to each other, we subconsciously, I guess, recognize that. And we both just, it's not like we had a conversation like, hey, we're going to take some time and step back because of this. We just didn't do them. And we just kind of like had an unspoken understanding as to why we weren't
with each other.
So, but it definitely does feel good to be back.
Yeah.
I missed this whole process, this whole, thinking of an idea or of a subject, doing some research, talking it over, and then actually recording. So I'm really glad to be back.
This episode probably could have been done about 3 weeks ago. I think we were ready to come back. I think we were just kind of procrastinating a little bit, or like, okay, we'll try to do it today, but we weren't being very intentional about setting some time. But I mean, in our defense, the kids are back in school, so it just makes it a lot easier. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of like, you might say like, I only do things when I feel led, but it also has to fit into my schedule, the led part. So
right, exactly. So we are super excited to be back. Not gonna lie, kind of feels like we're starting all over again. But I look back on it, like we did about 10 episodes?
I think so, yeah.
I want to say about 10 episodes. So that's not bad, like for our first, I guess you can say we did a spring season.
Yeah.
Took some of the, actually it was winter season, and then we took spring and summer off. So coming into fall,
maybe we'll be
ready for a new season.
Yeah, we'll be like a streaming service, like a show on a Netflix, or like that was season 1.
You gotta wait for
now it's season 2, or
we're mid-season right now.
Right,
we're mid-season,
and then you can either be the person that waits every week for the show to drop and watch it, or you just wait for however long and then like I'm just gonna binge it and then do all of them back to back.
Because our whatever 25 plus subscribers are just like, oh my
25
gosh,
million probably.
Oh, you're right.
Now.
You're right. I'm sorry.
So.
I forgot those other zeros were there. So so my bad.
For sure.
So yeah, we're super excited to be back. We are refreshed and energized and ready to bring some much more insightful episodes for you guys. We recorded 2-3 episodes and we never put them out. So
I think so. Yeah, maybe those will be like a
those are some dark
hidden tracks on like an album.
I don't know. I don't know if everyone want to put those out there, but there were some dark ones. They were pretty dark. I think that's when we knew, like, you know what? Let's kind of kind of put those in the back burner for a little bit. Let's see what happens. But
yeah, bring those to the light a day later on when we add to it or something.
Exactly. So, what we want to do though is, I think it's what we wanted to do from the beginning, is just brings topics, you know, that you guys can probably relate to because you're just normal people living normal everyday lives. And we want to bring situations that Derick and I both live every day, because I feel like that's what people are going to relate to the most. Not that that's not what we were doing, but I feel like this season that we're going to be doing, it's going to be a lot about just like relationships, things that we've been going through, experiences that we've had, which, like I said, that's what we wanted to do from the beginning. But the reason we picked this topic, because I realized that a lot of the things that we've been going through these last few months probably had a lot to do with this particular topic that we're going to be discussing today. And it is about codependency. And one of the things that I realized throughout these few months is how codependent I've been of my husband in the past and just, you know, recently. So I'm excited to talk about this topic because I feel like it's going to bring a lot of insight, you know, not just to you guys, like, you know, maybe in hidden little codependent ways that you might have in your relationship, but I think even with us, maybe bring some things to light, you know, as we discuss this topic.
And I think it's kind of, you know, it was a little bit eye-opening for me when you mentioned that when we were talking about this topic, how you feel like you relate to a lot of those things in codependency in our marriage or our relationship. When it's like I said, it was eye-opening because I feel like I'm the codependent one, but then you say, you know, you feel like that sometimes. And it kind of made me realize that I think in every relationship, everyone probably has a feeling of like sometimes they can be codependent. And I mean, we're going to talk about it in depth more in this episode, but like I think everyone feels that because there's just times where you kind of do lean in on your spouse or your partner because it's needed. Mm-hmm. And I think we're going to kind of go through the difference of like the healthy codependency and then the toxic codependency that people, you know, kind of put themselves and their partner through or in. But yeah, so that was just kind of something that, and again, what I was going to say even before you introduced the topic was about doing these episodes. I'm excited to really get back into these topics and discussions just because, like we said before, we're doing this for not just anyone who may be listening to this, but also for ourselves because we learn so much about, one, the topic because we do a little bit of research, but then two, learn about ourselves, and I learned about Jess, and it's things that like we wouldn't have thought to say to each other or express, not because we were ashamed or felt guilty or anything. It's just like we never thought about it until we like started diving into the subject. So yeah, it's all of these topics that we always come up with is always a good learning experience, and I hope you guys get take from that as well. But yeah, definitely excited to get into all the topics we have in store, but yeah, let's go ahead and start with this codependency.
Yeah, just really quick, what you said about, you know, us learning about each other and one another. It's crazy because how many times before we started this podcast, which you and I are actually pretty good at it. I'm not to be, you know, like boastful about it, but we're pretty good at having some pretty deep conversations with one another, and we love to talk. Like, we're just both talkers, right? But really, if you think about it, just your normal everyday couple, how many times do they sit and talk about topics like this? You know, like, how codependent do you think we are with one another? Right. Like, no, we don't even do that either. The only reason we talk about certain things is because, you know, we are trying to pick a topic for the podcast, and we're like, okay, so this is signs of this and this is signs of that. And then we like start talking to each other like, wait, dang, I feel like I have the tendency of doing that, you know, or you see that in yourself, or we see that in one another. So honestly, I really hope that, like you said, that this podcast doesn't just, you know, doesn't offer a door for you guys to get to know us a little bit more, but get to know yourselves, and also maybe have some of these conversations with your family, your loved ones, like, hey, you know, maybe these are some things that we can look up and see if we have tendencies of you know, doing or being this way, and just starting conversation, because more and more we're seeing people lose conversation, lose communication because of the world that we live in, you know, just media, busyness, like hecticness, you know. And even with, I know that I struggle, sorry, I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but I struggle with just communicating with people now, you know, talking to people. And I think one thing that I noticed about us starting this podcast is that it's bringing me back into conversation, not just with you and I, but with other people, and allowing myself to expand my topics, you know, than just the everyday, hey, how's it going? Hey, you know, did you see this on social media? Like, talk about things that actually we live through every day.
Yeah, and a lot of the times, and I think we've talked about this before too, where you know, people that are in a relationship, maybe it's been, you know, 6 months or 3 years or 5 years or whatever, but they feel like, oh no, we're in a good place because I talk to my spouse or I talk to my partner. But you don't even realize, like you mentioned just a little bit ago, like, what are the conversations you're having? You don't realize that the conversations you're having are so surface of, how was work? How was your day? Hey, did you hear about this? The teacher said this about, Jimmy or whatever. Like, just surface stuff. And I know, like you just mentioned the other day, where you were just like, I don't really like passing by conversation, like, hey, how have you been? Like, when you run into someone at a store, hey, have you been? Oh my god, we should get together. Okay, cool.
We saw someone we knew, and I was just like, let's go before that starts.
And it's not even like we don't not like those people, or like we just like, I hate those kind of, like, it makes it awkward and stuff. But anyways, like, relating it back to your relationship, it's like, really right now, even if you haven't in a while, like, stop and think, okay, what was the last deep conversation I had with my partner? Like, what were we really talking about? And what's funny is, like, well, you may ask, like, well, how do I just out of nowhere, like, tell me your innermost feelings? Like, no, like, yeah, sometimes it's awkward to start the conversation, but because you mentioned, like, oh, one of those things could just be like, oh, did you see this thing on social media? But honestly, sometimes, like this morning, it was something that came up with the fires in Maui, and it just was about, like, the government thing. And if you guys haven't looked into that, really look into that shit, because it is insane that they're just literally stealing land from those poor people. But anyways, it's like something that's like a conversation starter, which it led to that. Then it led to, like, the government. Then it led to like financial security and what people are able to do now, and it led to, like, what our plan is, and it kind of like, yeah, it kind of snowballs into deep conversations of what our plans are and what our hopes are and all these things. So it's like, never take for granted, like, anything can really, like, spark a good conversation. And that happens to us a lot. Like, we really just, well, like we said, the reason we started doing this, because we had so many of those conversations, we're like, dude, we should just record this and it would be a podcast. But so anyways, like, it's kind of funny that you talked, I don't know if you planned that, but it literally segues into, because we have a list, like always, we have a list of things, like signs or symptoms of, the topic that we're going to be discussing. But the first one, kind of coincidentally, is number one, like, there is a lack of genuine and honest communication in your relationship. So that's the first sign, not the most important, but just the first one of signs of codependency in a relationship. And I think, it's important. Like, we've said for so many other topics, and just in general, like, communication is, like, I feel like saying is key is an understatement. It is the lifeline. Key. It's the blood. It's the whole foundation. It's the essence of your guys' relationship, is to have open and honest communication with each other. And I think, when they're saying there's a lack of genuine and honest communication, because how can you really be genuine and honest with someone that either you're the person that's dependent on that other person, or that other person always feels that weight of dependency on their shoulders? You can't really be honest with each other, because if you were honest, I would think that it would come up like, hey, this isn't good for us. This is toxic. We need to work on this. So I understand that completely.
Yeah, and I think I would say it is the most important. I think it's the top because just like you said, it is the foundation. Communication. I think we've gotten so good at miscommunication. We've gotten so good around, beating around the bush of what it is that we really want to say. And it's, the genuine and honest communication, I think it comes down to, and I think you and I both struggle with this because we had a conversation a few months back about this, about how we're so afraid. We've been together, 15 years now? We've been married 12 years. And I really think about, you would think that we know each other so well and we, we're comfortable and we trust each other. But yet this particular point with the genuine and honest communication is something that we've struggled with for a long time. And to be honest with you, I think that's just a lot of people, and it's not anything to be ashamed of, but it's definitely something to work on, because I think we all have fears. We all have fears of either one, not, being misunderstood, dismissed, or someone making you feel like, what you're saying is really not that important, or it's not that serious, it's not that big of a deal. But at the end of the day, our only responsibility is just to communicate clearly to one another. And I think that one of the reasons I think this is such a sign of codependency is because we tend to communicate what the other person wants to hear. We don't ever say exactly how we're feeling, what it is that we want or that we need in the relationship. We always tend to cater around the other person and, how do you want the other person to feel, And I think what we need to really work on is not necessarily not care how the other person feels, but communicate from a genuine and loving place, but still don't compromise what it is that you really want to communicate and make known, because that's the only way the person's really going to get to know you, but being someone that is realizing how codependent I am in this relationship, or I have a tendency of being codependent, I can communicate in ways that I'm not really saying what I want to say, or it can come out a little passive aggressive when I say it, And
I think, in a relationship or just in general, someone that can communicate clearly and truly express their thoughts and their feelings to, if it's their spouse or their friend or their coworker, is someone that is confident and feels safe. Because if you don't have that, if you have low self-esteem or you just don't feel confident in yourself, you won't be able to speak clearly. You won't be able to speak and express your emotions and your thoughts. And that's obviously key in a relationship, to where you need to be with someone that gives you that space and gives you that kind of, confidence in yourself to feel like, I can tell you what I'm feeling, and I don't have to worry about your response. We'll all still feel that. I speak, again, I can't speak for anyone else, speak for myself, of kind of always having that little worry or fear in the back of my head of and I think it's like what you said. It's not so much that I think you're a person that's gonna respond bad, but it's more of a fear of I'm gonna not be able to communicate clearly, and you're gonna take it the wrong way because I didn't express it correctly. So I think you're right. It is probably a reason why that is number one, because it is one of the biggest things of being able to express yourself to eliminate any type of whatever issues you may have going on in your relationship, like dependencies.
Yeah, and it makes sense why number two would be you need approval from your partner. And that's one of the reasons why communication is so hard, because we don't want to say anything that's gonna make our partner uncomfortable or disagree with us, or or not get that approval that we're seeking, so much. So,
and I think the approval thing too, sorry to cut you off, one of the topics we did was oh my gosh, my mind just went blank. But being a people pleaser.
Yeah.
So always seeking your partner's approval is kind of a symptom or a sign of being a people pleaser, because you're always trying to do stuff for other people, and goes along with what you said in saying things that your partner wants to hear rather than expressing yourself. So yeah,
and you're trying to maintain the peace, right?
Exactly.
Like that's what you're trying. We always think I don't know, remember where I heard this a long time ago, where if you are in a relationship and you guys never fight, that's not a relationship, right? Like that's not
for sure.
That's definitely not healthy, because there's really obviously no communication there. Both of y'all just faking it all the time, because no matter what, regardless of what kind of relationship you're in, you're two different, completely different individuals, and there's going to be a misunderstanding. There's going to be things you don't agree on, and there's, unless I don't know, you were cloned, and I think even then you would develop different habits at some point of your life.
Identical twins probably fight, too.
Yes.
Like, they're the same person.
So I think it's something that just we all kind of do. We seek approval, and we want to keep the peace. And we don't want any type of confrontation, but there's times where you are going to have to just agree to disagree, and there's going to be times where you're just going to have to talk it out. There's going to be times where I'm not going to get an approval from you, and that doesn't mean, of course, I think there's a level of for example, let's say if I want to just go on some kind of spiritual trip for a whole month, and I'm just like, you have to let me go. Like, technically, I guess you can, but would that be wise for our family? I don't know. So there's like a level of approval. You know what I mean? Like, there's things that you can seek for approval, and there's other things that I don't really necessarily need an approval from you,
Yeah.
Did I make sense what I was trying to say with that?
Exactly. And again, I don't know if you're like doing this ahead, but that segues into the next where you said, like, go on a spiritual thing for yourself.
Oh, that's so funny. I did it.
Yeah, where number 3 is self-care becomes selfish. So yeah, like, and again, the example you said, obviously an extreme, in most cases, but if it was like absolutely needed to where you needed a month and like
girl, you need to go.
Yeah, then of course it is. And that's the whole environment and space that you should have in your relationship, to where if something is absolutely needed, but it's gonna put like stress or strain on the relationship, then that's something, again, you guys have to have a genuine conversation about, be completely open and honest, and really decide together whether it's going to, if it's absolutely needed, and if you guys can survive it. But yeah, like if you being in a relationship to where you feel like scared to say, hey, I need this because I need it for myself. I need some sort of, a getaway, or I need a cleanse, or I need whatever. Or even if it's not something like that, you just need to make changes in the relationship of your guys' day to day, just because how you feel like things are going it has not been good. Then that should be something that you get. And when you have someone that is codependent or dependent on a certain way that you are, or a certain way or certain things that you guys may do, if that other person's dependent on that, they can be very resistant to like wanting to change it, because they're dependent on a certain way things go, and they put themselves kind of first. So
it's so funny. This just made me think about the time that I asked you. I was so hesitant on bringing this up, and I think I ended up messaging you one day when you were at work, asking you if it was okay for me to book one night at a hotel, just to go and just like decompress. I was really going through it. I honestly don't know. I was just going through a lot of like stress, and I was in the middle of like therapy and just trying to process a lot of things, just doing a lot of healing. And I remember just feeling, like I didn't really, I don't want to say, it sounds dramatic, that not that I didn't deserve it, but I was being dramatic. I felt like I was being dramatic, that I needed this time off for myself, But I also felt like, in a way, I was afraid of going and doing this for myself on my own. I still haven't done it, but I do want to do it eventually at some point. But I was afraid to go somewhere on my own by myself and process things on my own. And I really thought about it. It's like, why do I feel like this is selfish of me to want this? And to be honest with you, that I think that was one of the moments that I realized I was like kind of dependent on you. One, to say yes, it's okay for me to go, or two, to actually go and do something on my own for myself. And it was a big eye opener for me, because I realized that I was a lot more codependent of this relationship than I could ever even imagine, and it started kind of opening my eyes to a lot of other different things. When you were working, and you would have to be gone for 3 days a week sometimes, and how much I was really afraid of you being gone and afraid of, being on my own. So yeah, I because it's funny, when I read that point, I was just kind of like, what does that mean? Like, being selfish. And I'm realizing that now, like, because you could have taken that as like, well, why would you, why do you need that? Or, you could have felt like I was kind of abandoning you, but it was me. It actually was me that felt like I not necessarily was abandoning you, but I had to go and do something on my own. And that's, that's, it scared me. And it's literally one day, but,
and two, people that when you're in a relationship, you can take the approach of, like you said, I could have responded in the sense of like, so you're saying in order for you to decompress or you to help yourself, you need to be away from me or be away from our relationship. Like, why is that? We're married, we should be able to get through everything together. And it's like 100%, yes, you do life and you get through things together, but no matter how strong or how much in love, whatever you guys are in a relationship, people are still individuals. Like we're still two individuals that came together. And the whole little Bible thing of like two people become one, like people don't become one. You're still two people, two individual consciousness that bind together and promise to each other we're going to do life together. However, self-care is still a very, very important thing, because it's care that no one else can give you. You can hire the most expensive, educated therapist in the whole world, or a spiritual guru, but anyone, and if you've ever gone to like anyone that, like a spiritual guru or something, they will all tell you the same. This is not me. I'm not doing anything for you. All I'm doing is giving you a space so that you can look deep within yourself and fix yourself. We're responsible for fixing ourselves and no one else. So it just makes sense, and that's the whole thing with, not feeling that self-care becomes selfish, to where you may be in a relationship where, it's just, you didn't realize when it happened, but at some point being able to ask, hey, can I get away, is so like foreign that it's just like, oh, I would never do that. Like we do everything together. And it's like, hey, I'm all for being close with your spouse and wanting to do, life with them, but you need that time, and if they don't give that to you, then that's definitely a red flag as to, hey, what's wrong in our relationship? What's wrong in our trust that we can't be separate, have separate lives when it's needed?
That goes perfectly into number 4. You feel the need to save them from themselves. And it's true, because
well, really, really fast. Like that literally is, sometimes there's, how we say, like, there's people that they seek these kind of people out. Like we were saying with the people pleaser, there's people pleasers in the world, and there's people that seek the people pleasers out because they know I can get from them. I can take their energy, take their time. In this case, it's almost the same. You get people that literally, the people that want to be saved, the people that like reach out, like, I want someone to fix me, I want someone to take care of me. they seek the people that actually kind of maybe even get off on like, oh, I feel needed. Oh, I have a purpose. I am here for them. I make them stronger.
People that are codependent on the people that need them.
Exactly. And well, it's like that article we read. It's that cycle of codependency where it's like that person is addicted to the person that's addicted to them needing them. So it's just like no one's going to break that cycle unless one of them jumps off that merry-go-round. But usually they don't, because they don't even see that they're in that cycle. They think that's the norm. Oh, this must be what everyone's relationship is like, right? Like they're helpless, I help them, and then sometimes I'm helpless and they help me. And it's like, yeah, we should be there for our partners in that sense, but it shouldn't be where it's dependent. I need this person to fix me. I need this person to make me who I am.
Or I need this person to need me.
Yeah, exactly. So.
And it's, I can relate to that in my friendships. And as being someone that is very, like, I'm an empath and I can sense a lot of things, and sometimes that becomes my weakness because I love to talk and to help people. Now that I do like tarot readings, and that's become really an outlet for me to be able to go in deeper with people. Readings that I've done, I've tapped into their trauma and done things like that, and eventually that's what I want to do with tarot. But I can become very addicted to the fixing role, and I noticed that even way before I started doing tarot. With my friendships, they became very codependent of me to be there for them when they needed me, and I became very addicted to that dynamic of, oh cool, they're calling me because they need my advice, because I'm the one that has all the wisdom. And I became very much trapped in that cycle that I was honestly creating. Yeah. Because it wasn't so much the other person, because the other person made it very clear that this is what the relationship and the friendship was about, right? And I was the one that kept it going, because I could have closed that door and I didn't. But I kept that cycle going because it was actually feeding something within me. It was that need that I had within me that I needed, filled.
And I think, if a therapist is good, it doesn't maybe even need to be a therapist, but a therapist especially, because they are trained and, they're professionals. But even if just like a friend, if you have someone that, that's the kind of relationship you have to where, they come to you and you hear them out, you hear what they're going through, give them advice. If you identify exactly like what you said, like, okay, we've been doing this for like months now, and even if it's like the same situation, you're just not getting over this, or if it's just new stuff, but it's similar to what you've been going through, a good therapist or person giving advice will just like go to that person and be like, okay, look it. Obviously, we've kind of hit a ceiling of advice giving here, and maybe we need to like step back, or maybe you just need to seek someone else out, or do it on your own. Because you can only give someone so much advice. They have to make the decision. They have to make the change. You might have therapists out there where, like you said, they get addicted to that. I love fixing people. I love giving this advice, and they just keep doing it. And it's just like, you need to be better. You need to be a professional and identify, hey, I know when to keep going and I know when to stop.
Anyone, I feel, I'm not, again, I come from it more from the spiritual side, with tarot. And the cool thing is that it's literally only an hour session that I do. So it's, I connect. Cut it off, and because people have to pay, they don't come back as often as I would like for them to come back. But that's the cool thing with having it being like a paid service, because as people are going to really try to get what they can from that hour and try to apply it on their own, right? But someone that doesn't, that comes to like a friend, it keeps coming and coming and coming, and they keep doing. But anyone that does this professionally, and I think if they try to do it the way that maybe a friend or a mom or whatever, someone just in your personal life tries to do that, they would burn out. They wouldn't make it. Yeah. Because it becomes so draining, and you give so much of your energy, to trying to fix someone, that you completely lose yourself. And that's something that I've realized, that I became so codependent on my friendships, trying to fix them and figure them out, that I realized that I was completely losing sight of me. And honestly, I realized that I became, and I know I still struggle with this, but I couldn't take constructive criticism, because to me it was like, you come to me to ask me what to do, why the hell are you telling me what to do? Like, don't try to speak into my life in that way. And that was so not okay, So I know we kind of ranted on this particular point, but I think it's so important to recognize that cycle within yourself, of if you're trying to allow someone to fix you, or if you're trying to take the role of the savior also, because it becomes a very codependent type of relationship and cycle that becomes very hard to break.
And the person that's doing the saving, it's sort of like they can't comprehend or understand why you're trying to tell them, like, it's not healthy for you to always feel like you want to help and save this person or save someone, when it's just like, well, why? But I'm helping them. And it's like, sometimes people don't, I wouldn't say they don't want your help, because that person probably is addicted to the help, but they don't want to actually take your advice or take your help and then grow. They just wanted you to keep feeding them the help.
It's
and
a
just
process.
be in that kind of, cycle.
Healing and growing, it's a process, right? Like, no one's going to be able to come and, like, I think about, like, someone that plants a seed and they keep on covering it. Is it ready? Has it grown? Like, well, fuck, you keep on covering it. Like, it's not going to freaking grow. Like, you have to let it do what it's going to do, right? And I think that someone that tends to be the savior does that.
Yeah.
Waters and waters and waters, and then comes in and uncovers it, and then it's
they
like,
take the whole thing out and, like, let me see the roots. Is it growing? It's like, well, you just took it out of its
you can't
dirt.
do that. You got to allow it to just do what it needs to do. And as someone, again, that does sometimes see themselves as the savior, a little bit of a God complex, like, it's you can get very addicted to that going back and checking, and it's not a responsibility. It's really not. Whew, that was a long point. Sorry.
The next one, I'm gonna take the husband approach to it.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, so it says, you have a hard time making your own decisions. And it's not so much that I have a hard time making my own decisions. I just don't want to make the bad one, or the one I'm going to get yelled at.
Welcome to Jessica and Derick's, like, a little insight on like marriage therapy for them. Okay.
Yeah. So, like, here's a perfect.
Just make the goddamn decision. Okay.
Perfect example.
Just
I'm in aisle 8 at Stater Brothers, and there's traditional red sauce, there's tomato basil red sauce, and then there's garlic herb red sauce for the spaghetti tonight. I would say, obviously it'd be like, oh, well, just pick one, it doesn't matter. Oh my God! But if I bring home the wrong one,
really,
aisle 8, Stater Brothers.
So stupid.
No, there's so many times. Well, and I know there's, like, memes and whatever on it, but anytime I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna go to the store. I won't even have to say it anymore. I'll just give her the look right before I leave, and she's like, don't. I'm turning my phone off. Do not call me. Do not text me. Just make the damn decision on what to get, okay? But
I'm literally shaking at my seat, because you know what blows my freaking mind is I use the same sauce all the freaking
we're really staying
time.
On the spaghetti sauce?
Okay, we're going to stay on the spaghetti sauce, because I hardly ever make spaghetti, but when I do, I use the same flipping sauce every single time. You're going to tell me that you don't have that fucking picture in your head and just like, oh yeah, that's the one she always gets.
If someone offered me $1 million right now to say what spaghetti sauce you use, I couldn't tell them. I have no idea.
That's where my frustration comes, because I don't understand. I don't get it. But if I randomly name a freaking movie, you can probably recite the whole freaking movie.
I will give you the director,
verbatim,
the producer, the cinematographer, the sound editor, the year it came out.
I can't. And that's where Are we done with this point? Because I think it's gonna.
Well, no, but before we move on, so the actual point probably, or the discussion we should have on you have a hard time making your own decisions is, again, well, and it kind of makes sense, codependency. You're dependent on that other person's input. You're dependent on what that other person wants.
Of course.
So yeah, that just makes perfect sense. So I mean, and again, these are signs and symptoms. So making the smallest decisions, but or also making the biggest decisions in your relationship, you feel like you can't pull the trigger on something. And I'm not saying that, like, I mean, yeah, you should definitely, if you're in a committed relationship, and definitely in a marriage, like, you're not gonna like pull the trigger on a brand new car and just show up and like, hey, I just put us down for this, so now we're in debt, $68,000. Like, no, you're gonna discuss these things. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about decisions that impact, your life together, your life separate, your day to day, your home. You feel like you can't make any decision without this person's like approval, and yes, you can go ahead and do this.
I just thought about The Office with Pam and Jim, right? Where I think it's one of the first episodes where I don't know if they had gotten married already yet or not. But anyways, he went and bought his parents' house without telling Pam, right? And you see throughout the show that he tends to kind of do that throughout when he invested in the business. And, he started. And then when he, again, decided that they were going to move to Philadelphia, right? I think they were going to move to Philly. And he has this like pattern of making decisions without telling her. And eventually she's just like, you're completely excluding me from these big life decisions that we should be making together. So that's like the extreme of the other opposite, side of the spectrum, right?
There, yeah.
So I think when you're in a relationship, yes, you can make decisions on your own. And there's, everyday decisions like, should I go up on a walk today and, make a healthy choice for myself today? Yeah, you should. You shouldn't depend on your spouse being active for you to do that on your own, right? So there's those kind of decisions that we can make every single day on our own. And then they're the big decisions of buying a house, buying a new car, like these things that will eventually affect the both of you together. Those are the things that we need to be considerate of each other, So I think at that point, I think it's just using some wisdom and some common sense, But with this particular point about making decisions, I think, and I see it in us, and this is kind of the last thing I'll touch in this topic because we're kind of ranting on this, but I feel that there was a lot of times that we would fall off of our healthy lifestyle because the other would fall off, or the other would kind of slack off, and then I'm like, well, okay, well, he or she is slacking, so we're just gonna take this week off, and before we knew it, it's a month and 2 months and 3 months, and then we would become kind of like resentful of each other, or at least I would, like, well, why isn't he being healthy? Like, that would make it so much easier for me if he did that, or he did this, like, or, why isn't he saving money on this? Or, it makes it harder for me. Well, if he's going to do that, then I'm going to do this. And it's like, no, we have to make these decisions for ourselves because, one, if we're doing the right thing and we're saving, or we're being healthy, or we're being active, whatever, or like keeping up the house clean, then that's going to motivate the other person to want to also do the same. But at the end of the day, that is completely up to the other person to make those choices on their own or not, You
could say that we were dependent on the other person starting it. And I know I'm guilty of that because we've talked about that, where you've literally had that honest and genuine, conversation with me where it's like, I need you to just sometimes you just do it. Like, don't wait around for me to start it. Like, you just do it. And I will wholeheartedly admit, like, yeah, I become dependent on, especially when it comes to things like that. Like, if we've been on a binge of like not working out or not eating good, of just kind of like, well, I'm gonna let this ride out until Jess finally like, hey, we need to get back to it, and like, okay, then I'll do it. It's like no, and like this last time around where we started, training with our trainer one on one, and going back to the lifting class that we used to do, I was kind of the one that just text Jessica and was like, hey, we're gonna do this. I know it's gonna it costs money and stuff, but we need to invest, and we're just gonna do it. And she told me like, good. I said yes because I'm just glad you were the one to like push it and to push us, and let's just go, let's just do it. So yeah, it's you become dependent on waiting for the other person to be the first one to do something,
Yeah.
And then the next point, again, these all kind of just go in line with each other, is you feel like you can't say no. And that makes sense because if you're someone that's dependent on the other person in the relationship, it's kind of like going along with like people pleasing, where if they bring it up, it's like, well, I'm not gonna say no to you. Like, yes, let's just do it. Like, because either if you're the person that's dependent on the other one, whatever that person wants to do, let's just do it because I need this person. I can't go on. I can't survive without them. And then if it's the opposite and you're the savior one, what you feel like you need to take care of that person. So if they're asking to do something or they want to do this, yes, let's just give it to them because I know they need it. Let me give them what they need. So again, vicious cycle, but it can be on both ends of not wanting or feeling scared to like say no to them, to their ideas or what they want.
This is like an interesting one. I feel like this one, like you feel like you can't say no, almost like touches all like the first five, probably just not one, but you feel like you can't say no because one, you can't communicate. You can't communicate your needs and what it is that you really want to do.
Yeah, why you believe it should be a no.
Right.
You can't say it.
You don't, you want to get approval from your spouse because you're just like, well, if I say no, they're going to get mad and then it's just going to be weird and it's going to be a shitty day. Like, we're just going to say yes, And then the next one, it's you feel like your self-care becomes selfish, like where no, maybe it's a certain situation where you really don't want to do this. It makes you feel uncomfortable. You don't, like it just makes you don't.
It's not good for you.
You don't feel good.
Yeah, maybe it's something for them. They're like, we really need to do this, and it's like maybe that'll help you, or do you think it'll help you, but it's gonna set me back, or it's not something that I want to do. Like,
Yeah, and then just saying no, and then maybe allowing them to figure out, do they really want to do this or not, making that decision on their own if it's really wise for this situation to take place or not. So I really think it's just funny because I was kind of like looking at it like, well, why is that
like sometimes it's good
a
to
codependent
say no,
but I know it's really it is true. It's sometimes saying no. We had friends come over a few weeks back, and they really want to go to this spot that you and I usually don't. Derick and I, it's not really our thing. It's something that we used to, it was our hangout spot like back in the day when we first started going out. And it's just one of those places where, it used to be really fun and then it turned into not so fun. And we just kind of set a hard boundary of just like, we're not going back there anymore. We've always, I don't know, it's kind of like I don't know, it brings back a lot of bad memories kind of place, right? So our friends came over and they really wanted to go because we had gone there one time years ago, and we had a lot of fun, and we're like, okay, well, let's just go, so my friend wants to go, let's just have a good time, make the best of it. And Derick was just like, no, like we really shouldn't go. Every time we go, it's just bad. Like the last time we went, we got COVID there, so it was just all bad, like bad memories. And Derick was really trying to tell me no, and I was just like, no, we're going. And sure enough, I mean, we had a good time, but I think at the end of the night, we looked at it like, okay, we're done with this place, right? Like we're officially done going to this place because nothing good comes out of the situation, So I think it was like a learning moment for me too, where just, Derick trying to tell me no and be very clear with that. And I don't want to say like I I was mean by dismissing it, or I was trying to be mean by dismissing him. It was more like, okay, let's just do this for our friends. And, you know, it's not, I mean, like, I know that I could have told my friend, like, honestly, like, we really, really don't want to go. And they would have been fine with it, you know, but I was really trying to please my friends. And, you know, that's just something I wanted to do for them. But at the end of the day, I feel like I could have respected your no. And I could have just, you know, explained to my friends, like, hey, this isn't, it's really just not a good place to go to. And it's, you know, it's just, not that it's bad or anything. It's just not, we're not comfortable there. And we could have just not gone, you know? But that, to me, like, that's an example of how saying no on an, like, not everyday situation, but a situation that you can run across in a relationship or even a friendship too, you know? Of just saying no and respecting that person's no and just like, okay, you know, I understand that, you know, it just, we can think back on it and just see like, okay, yeah, maybe it would have been, you know, better to not go.
Yeah.
So, all right. So number
7,
you have abandonment issues.
I mean, abandonment issues can lead to a lot of toxic relationship traits and symptoms. But I mean, the way that I kind of relate it to dependency or codependency is again on both sides. So the person that obviously is dependent, if you have abandonment issues, that's probably why you're dependent on someone.
Yeah.
You can't, function without them. You kind of need them to take care of you, and you feel like if they're not there, it goes with, I've been abandoned my whole life and I'm just, I can't do things on my own. But then if you're someone who has that savior role or likes to be in that savior role, and maybe you have gone through abandonment issues, you are almost like, I need to save this person. I need to be there for this person because I know what it feels like for people to turn their back on you and to be abandoned. So you kind of are like pushing yourself into that role, or you kind of convince yourself as to why you need to be in that role. So I mean, abandonment issues can be impacts on both types of people, and it could just be an impact overall for many reasons why people are the way they are in, like I said, people pleasing and just other just different not good traits that you can have about yourself. But yeah, it makes sense with codependency in a relationship.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it was until I started therapy that I realized that I had some form of like abandonment issues. I've always considered myself like super independent, super just like, I was such a just go-getter, fighter type of person. I was a single mom. I pride myself in, or back then I did, in never really needing anyone. But at the root of it, I realized that I had a lot of abandonment issues because I pretty much, never, I was raised by a single mom, never knew my dad, the little history on me. And I to me, I was always like, well, I didn't ever know my dad, so I didn't really know what I was missing out on. So I don't really have abandonment issues from that because technically he was never there, so I wasn't technically abandoned, But as you go to therapy and you start to realize, like, no, there's some, deep-rooted abandonment issues. And what you just said right now about someone that's has abandonment issues, how they can tend to be the savior because they want to make sure that the people in their lives never feel that abandonment, because we felt it. It really kind of hit me because it's very, very true how you can become the overly aggressive person towards trying to fix someone and save someone. And at the end of the day, it is having abandonment issues having undealt with abandonment issues can either lead to a very codependent relationship, as far as I need someone to take care of me. I need someone to fix me. I need someone to figure this out for me or with me, or I'm going to try and take care of. I mean, that's exactly what you just said right now. But it is very true to it's very true to get stuck in either one of those roles if you don't figure out some way or form to heal those abandonment issues. And I mean, anyone that has gone through any form of abandonment, it doesn't necessarily need to be by a parent. It could be by a spouse. It could even be by a friend. You know, you feel like your best friend just up and left, or your boyfriend, your girlfriend, you know, your sibling. You can feel that feeling of abandonment really from anyone, someone that you become dependent on. So I really do recommend anyone that has or is going through that right now, really seek some help, because you can get stuck in a pattern that is, before you know it, very difficult to get out of. And it becomes a very toxic situation. And this can really lead into a very, not just toxic, but even abusive type of situation with one another. Mm-hmm. And, you know, when we were looking up signs, and I think we're going to have to make this a part 2 type of episode, because we're already going really long, so we'll probably end it here. But as we were reading, you know, other signs of codependent, a lot of it was in abusive relationships. And what happens when you get stuck in this type of relationship, before you know it, you can fall into a very controlling type of environment. And now everything that the other person does, you want to have a say in, or vice versa. You know, whatever, the other person becomes so codependent on you, now they want to dictate what it is that you do in your life. And that's very dangerous, because it leads, like I said, to a very toxic and dangerous environment and relationships. So I do encourage anyone that's going through that, please, because I've been in a toxic and abusive relationship in the past, and it's very hard to get out of. It's probably one of the hardest things you'll ever go through, because it makes you question yourself a lot. And that's the problem with codependency, is that it makes you question yourself. And it does cause you to hold back truth. It does cause you to not speak your honest, you know, opinions and thoughts, because you're afraid to piss someone off, or, you know, make them uncomfortable. And all these things that we've listed, there's, I believe, 8 more that will go into the next half, but they can really begin to create a lot of inner turmoil within you if it's not addressed, and if it's not treated properly and in the right way.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's, you know, again, it's always, for everything, it's 2 to tango, you know, in every relationship, I always say it's a 2-way street. So even if someone, like, I forgot what episode it was, but when we hit on that, where they were saying, like, you know, whatever, your girlfriend comes and tells you, you know, oh, I just broke up with my boyfriend, and this and this, and he's so bad, and he, you know, for 3 years, he would do this, and I had to suffer through that, and blah, 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 blah. But then, like we said, like, you can easily turn to that friend and just be like, you also allowed that to happen for 3 years. You also allowed yourself to go through that. And again, the reasons why people stay in relationships, I mean, too many to list as to why you feel you're not strong enough to remove yourself from it. And we'll go into this more on the next episode, but it takes, no one ever wants to hold themselves accountable, you know? They always want to put blame on someone else. I think that's the most mature thing, or that's the biggest sign of a mature person, is to where they can say, I am responsible for this. You know, even in the worst breakup, where, you know, the person just cheated on the other person, and that person's garbage, they're crap. It's still, for that person who got cheated on everything, to be like, but I allowed this, or maybe I pushed them to do that, whatever the case may be. It shows a sign of maturity when you can hold yourself accountable as to the reason why your relationship's not healthy, or the reason why your relationship may be toxic. So, you know, when you have a codependency, it's those 2 people, because obviously there needs to be 2 people. One person needs to be dependent on the other, and the other person needs to be addicted to being, you know, having that person be dependent on them. So it takes one or both to say, hey, this isn't healthy, this isn't good, we need to change it, or we need to separate. So
Can I say something really quick? Like, that's one of the dangers of having the whole we become one type of person, because then responsibility gets mixed up. Then it just becomes pointing the finger at one another, because you don't know the difference between you and the other person. And now it's just a blaming game, and everything just gets mixed up, you know? But when you separate yourself, make yourself two individuals, then you're able to see the behaviors within yourself, and you're able to allow the other person, not to point the finger at the other person, but allow the other person to figure it out for themselves as well, you know? But the whole, like, becoming one thing, it gets messy, because there's no, like, identity there. There's you know, you just, all of a sudden you become responsible for the other person just as much as you're responsible for yourself. It doesn't work like that.
It's hard enough to know who you are and identify things that you need to process through and you need to have in order to function in a healthy manner, let alone put someone else's past trauma and everything and try to deal with that to create this one person in a relationship.
Yeah.
You know?
So I heard something real quick. I know we said we were going to end, but I just it really bothered me when I heard this. This guy had, I don't know, I think they have a podcast too, but they were talking about relationships, and he was saying, he's like, if your girl triggers you, or your girl's, like, behaviors or something, like, triggers you, then you really need to ask yourself, like, do you really know your girl? Like, do you really know the things that bother her, or that you know, that trigger her? And if you don't, then it's your responsibility to really get to know what it is that bothers her and makes her upset, or, you know, makes her uncomfortable and angry. And I really honestly thought about it, and I commented on there and was like, why is it your responsibility to figure her shit out?
Why isn't she telling you?
Why isn't she, one, yes, telling you this, but also, why are her triggers your problem? They're not. Those are her triggers. Those are the things that bother her. She has to figure out, why is this triggering me? Why is this making me upset? And I mean, I'll be 100% honest. Like, that's something that I know that I'm also guilty of, where if something makes me mad, I feel like some way you kind of need to fix it. And it's not like that. You know, my only your only responsibility is to really hear me when I communicate. And that's it, you know, and I don't even say responsibility, but it's something that I feel like, as my husband, I hope you would give me that space to hear me if something's bothering me. But it's not your job to watch me and observe me. That's what he said, that that men needed to observe and learn their wives. And I'm like
she's a science experiment.
Yeah, like she's some kind of freaking project.
What's your observations on her?
And I'm like, how? Honestly, when I think about that, I think of just the pressure and the burden a relationship comes. I'm sorry, the burden it becomes.
Yeah.
You know, it becomes like this job and this project and this, like, almost like science experiment that they need to figure out. And it's not like that. Yeah. You know, we're not things that we need to figure out of each other. Like, we need to get to know each other by communicating, talking, discussing, and being 100% honest with one another. Yeah. You know, but it's never your job to figure it out and figure out why she's fucking triggered. Like, she's triggered because she doesn't know how to identify her own triggers.
I mean, I think that's one area that you and I for sure are very strong in. I mean, for instance, you have that peanut allergy, and I love peanut butter, and I make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in the bed. I don't care. That's your trigger. That's your problem. You know?
If something ever happens to me.
Super chunk, the Skippy super chunk, so that's where it's stupid. At.
I'm not allergic, but I do hate peanut butter sometimes, because you talk about it so much. Everything we get. Can we get peanut butter? Can we get peanut butter flavor? Why? Why does everything have to be freaking peanut butter flavor? It's disgusting.
I'm waiting for Aquafina to make that peanut butter flavor water. Life will be good.
Anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening to our rants. I hope that what we've shared today, we do have another half that we will be discussing. So we have, I think, another 8 points,
we'll
maybe,
we'll finish
or 7
off
points.
The last of that list.
Yeah,
and kind of go over those. But Like Jess was starting to say there, I hope the parts that we have gone over have kind of maybe helped you to understand if your relationship maybe might be suffering from some of these, and kind of motivated you to talk it out with your partner. And because again, it's never an easy task to bring up something that's sensitive, because you never want to come at your partner and be like, this is a problem and we need to fix it. No one ever wants to hear that, but it could be the one thing that saves your relationship. And if you care about that person or care about your relationship, you need to have that genuine and honest communication and have an environment of that safety to where we can bring this up and we can discuss it. And it's not pointing fingers or blaming. It's taking the accountability and saying, what is my role in this and what is your role in this and how can we change it? So I hope that is what you guys got from this. Like Jess said, we're going to come back with part 2, kind of finish this list out. But until then, we thank you guys for our little pause in episodes here, and we're glad to be back, and we promise to not be gone for a long time again. So.
And look out for Would You Rather questions.
Oh yes, the most important part of this whole podcast is the Would You Rathers, which I'm pretty sure we'll have next time. So
yes.
But until then, be safe, be great, and keep growing, and positive. We'll see you guys.
Bye.